Adam Ratzman. I work at Microsoft on the Aspire team. I'm a software engineer, and my areas of focus right now are the Aspire dashboard, the Aspire CLI. I also work on our VS Code extension and just other things as well. And Aspire was at TrailBlazor last year, but we were a little bit of a different product, actually had a different name, if anyone remembers, and we'll get to that in a moment. But Aspire is new. Over the past year, we've rebranded, we've added a lot of features, and I'm excited to share first all about that, and then how we leverage Blazor and dotnet to build a good dashboard experience, as well as ensure that we have a fast, reliable CLI, and all of that in one nice developer package. So Maddie was here last year at TrailBlazor talking about what .NET Aspire was and why you should care. Now, spoiler alert, Aspire is no longer .NET Aspire. We've expanded, and we now want to conquer the world with developers in every ecosystem. But yeah, we'll get to that a little later. So if you were not able to attend the Aspire conference earlier this year, or the talk last year at TrailBlazor about Aspire, here's a little refresher or a high-level overview. So Aspire is a series of dev tools that's designed to make your life as a distributed application developer easier. And a distributed application, we all pretty much are creating them. It's anything from a website with a database to a very complex e-commerce site, or is a API that accesses external resources. The shape of a distributed application is so fluid and can't really be pinned down. We all make them. So Aspire's main goal is to make your experience in local dev one as similar as possible as production, and also just very fluid and nice and debuggable. The main part that's new this year is we have GA'd the Aspire CLI. Previously, to run an Aspire application, you would, in your IDE of choice, Visual Studio, VS Code, Writer, what have you, you would open your project, you would run, and that's pretty much all. You could run in run mode or publish mode, but it was really just like an IDE service. The Aspire CLI, which has been GA'd for I think about 11 months now, provides an entire control plane for you to manage everything from creating a new Aspire project to publishing or deploying your applications. And you can do that not just through Azure, but you could create Helm or Docker Compose files or deploy to AWS. We're really cloud agnostic, or you don't even need a cloud at all. So that's the main new thing this year. Aspire at its heart is really just a resource model. You model the shape of your real distributed application. How it's going to be deployed is the same way you're going to debug and access it and develop with it locally. And you do that through what's called an app host. And I'll demo that in a little while. But the app host is just defining everything in code. We have a shirt on our sites that's just called "Friends Don't Let Friends Write YAML," and it's funny. It's supposed to be a joke, but there's a little bit of truth to it as well. YAML it's brittle. It's not debuggable, and really, it's just kind of magic. It's great when it works, but it's not exactly the most flexible thing. or the most observable thing. So Aspire's main goal is to replace all of that, move it in code. And you do that through that resource model. We have first-party resources uh, for your C# projects. Blazor projects are included in that. We have JavaScript or Python or Go or what have you. All of those things we natively support. You have databases as well, like MySQL or Postgres. And then we have a robust community and even a community toolkit of resources that are provided by just people external to Microsoft, adding support for things like Java, um, and other tools and services and cloud services that people want to use Aspire with. Because the main point of Aspire is it's flexible. We want you to model your application as it actually is going to be live. And so in order to do that, you need to be able to express the shape of that application. So we make it easy to make or extend integrations. And then lastly, it's important to observe what's going on. You can do that through debugging, yes, but telemetry is also very important. And we have an Aspire dashboard, which I will get to a little later on in this presentation because we actually wrote that in Blazor and have done that from the start. And the Aspire dashboard, it gives you one place to see the health of your applications and view what's going on, your structured logs or console logs or what have you. Yeah, so as I mentioned before, we want you to model your application state as it is when you're going to publish it. And so it's local dev with cloud services. So if you have Foundry applications, or you are like using a Cosmos DB database when you're deploying to, let's say, Azure, then we have local emulators and you can run that locally as well. So your local dev experience is going to match what's in production. As I mentioned, it's all with code. It's extensible. We've done a lot of work since last year on essentially exposing a whole pipeline system. And we've started even rewriting our own pipelines, our own Azure DevOps pipelines and GitHub pipelines using this infrastructure as well. So we're trying to dog food our own product, but it's mainly for your deployments because deployments are complicated and individualized to each company and application. And the Aspire CLI exposes a way to actually run those things easily. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and demo a little bit. So Aspire, as I mentioned, is essentially just an app host. At its core, you could have just one file and it's your app host. Everyone here attending this conference is a Blazor developer. And most likely that means that you're very comfortable with C# as well. I have to, unfortunately, make it known, confess that before joining Microsoft, I wasn't familiar with Blazor or C# either. And I have been impressed time after time of the quality of both ecosystems and their flexibility and power and also just performance. So I really enjoy using both of them. But anyway, back to the point. Here is an app host, and I'm gonna zoom in a little bit. This is written in C#, and I actually went ahead and I cloned the TrailBlazor site. It's a little bit different design. It's much worse. It's very sloppy, but it's to prove a point. So if you look, we have a couple different resources, and in Aspire we call them resources. That's just a container or an executable or whatever individual item that you're going to be running. So for our TrailBlazor site, we have to manage registrations. And so we have a Postgres database. We have a database, or a Postgres container, and a database inside of that that's going to manage those registrations. There's an API service that you can see here. That's a C#, just ASP.NET application, and handles those requests, and it returns sessions, and it also waits for our database to be available and healthy. And we do that in just one call. There's not really any resiliency that needs to be built in to that ASP.NET microservice, because Aspire is handling it for us. And then lastly, we have our Blazor application, our front end, and that's going to wait on everything else to start up. So this is a C# app host. It's a file-based app. It's not project-based. We just have this one file. But most of you should be familiar with how it works as of .NET 11. I think file-based applications have been GA'd. So if we run our app host, let's see, we can see inside VS Code that we're seeing the status of our resources. And it's starting up, it's starting up. Let's open the dashboard, and our TrailBlazor site also pops up. And if we scroll down, it's the same information. It is a little bit of a generic like AI design, but if we scroll down, we can see essentially the same information. Our current session is down here. And if I go to the very bottom, then we have this registration. Part of the benefit of Aspire, if I go back here, I can go to my API service, and I'm not actually debugging right now. I just ran without debugging. But if I were, then I'd be able to set a breakpoint, and I can debug and set breakpoints for pretty much all of my applications at once. And it doesn't matter the language that they're written in. It could be C#. We support Python as well, and Go, JavaScript. It's just F5 once, and then you're able to debug everything at the same time. And I'll get to that a little later when we talk about the Aspire dashboard itself. Now, something that's new with Aspire over the past year, as I mentioned, we are going beyond .NET. We still love .NET. We're not abandoning it at all. Our CLI, all of our new integrations, they're all made using .NET. But if you're not a .NET developer, or where you're working isn't just .NET, then now we have a TypeScript app host as well. So you can soon also write these in Go or Python or Java. For now, it's just TypeScript and C#, but it's essentially here the same definition. We have our Postgres database. We have our microservice API. And then we still have our Blazor front end. It doesn't matter that our app host is TypeScript and our front end is Blazor. You can still run it just the same. Okay, so I'm going to pause that for now, and we'll get back to this application when we talk more about the dashboard. But just to summarize, Aspire app host now can be written in multiple languages. You're welcome to come as you are, come with the infrastructure you want. Our inner dev loop has improved for non-C# resources. Aspire is much, much more mature as a product in 2026, and it's ready to be used in production. You are absolutely welcome to, and we have people within and outside Microsoft all using it in production as well. There are more ways to use Aspire. There's a CLI, as I keep mentioning. We have VS Code extensions. You can run through Visual Studio, as most people attending probably are. And you can also just run the Aspire dashboard. We have it bundled in the CLI so that you can take advantage of just the OTel part of Aspire, because Aspire might be a collection of dev tools. It is a coherent product, but you don't have to get all of the benefits and pay all of the cost of switching if you already have a brownfield application. You can take the parts of Aspire that you want. You don't want to fully Aspirify an existing app. And eventually you can Aspirify as time permits. There's much more to explore. We have a website at aspire.dev, and it's great. It's very informative. Would highly recommend you check it out. But for now, let's talk more about how we actually use Blazor and dotnet. So Aspire, our code base essentially looks like this. We have an Aspire CLI. It's written in dotnet. It's native AOT compatible, and we do compile it to binaries for all major operating systems. And everyone here who has ever built a CLI knows that speed is very important for a CLI. Every millisecond does actually count. And so one of the benefits of .NET, especially more recent versions, where even more libraries and frameworks in the .NET environment have converted to be a native AOT compatible, we use that for our CLI. And Aspire at its core, as I mentioned, is just an app model and an app host. And that's what we call hosting. There's bidirectional communication between the CLI and hosting, and they communicate resource health and status and expose the ability to run commands on your resource, like stop or restart or anything you define. And that dashboard lives inside of our hosting packages. It's sidecar alongside it, and integrations are built on top of this hosting platform. What we get, and you might be able to see it easily, is we have a common set of models. Our resource models, our protocols. Now, if there's communication between a lot of these entities, then part of the benefit of us going all in on the .NET ecosystem, as well as using Blazor for our front end, is we get to reuse a lot of this code, and we get to reuse all of the same patterns and expertise as well that all of our team has built. We have a lot of .NET knowledge. This is me very surprising. A lot of .NET knowledge at Microsoft, and so we do get to embrace and take advantage of that. So, why Blazor for the Aspire dashboard? Now, I just mentioned this, but there's a lot of code reuse that we can actually have. It's important because more code requires more context and is harder for people, especially new contributors. And Aspire has a pretty robust series of external contributors. It's all more difficult for new people or even existing members of the Aspire team to switch into new areas. By limiting the number of technologies, frameworks that we use, we ensure that there's a lot more portability of skills, but also we can ensure code quality. Fluent UI also is Microsoft's design system, the Fluent design system, and it's awesome in Blazor. I highly recommend that you check it out. Vincent, and his name is French, so I'm totally going to butcher it, but Dennis are the maintainers of the Fluent UI Blazor library. And we leverage that in the Aspire dashboard to pretty much have all of our UI components. It's great. They are highly accessible and make it really easy to get up and running with a new application in Blazor. ASP.NET also provides a lot of services built in without any additional libraries or anything that all apps need. Auth, WebSockets, various kinds of security integrations. And it's important right now, especially in the age of AI, because there's a lot of vulnerabilities. And the easier that you make it to secure and harden your application, the more likely it is that we'll be able to take advantage of that. ASP.NET has a great ecosystem already, and by using Blazor, we get to tap into that. An underrated benefit as well, in our view, is that there's a stable ecosystem in Blazor. Now, React is cool, Angular is great, Svelte is fun. But the problem with the JavaScript ecosystem, and anyone here who has actually used one of those and then gone away for a couple years and come back and the entire ecosystem has changed, will realize that the JavaScript ecosystem is not very stable. It changes quite rapidly. And Blazor, on the other hand, there's a lot more incremental changes. The .NET team at Microsoft does a lot of work to ensure, one, backwards compatibility, but also that unnecessary changes aren't made without an actual reason. And now happens in the JavaScript ecosystem as well. Some changes are needed, but if you create an application with Blazor, come back after a couple of years, you're still really easily able to pick it back up. And type safety as well. We understand that TypeScript has type hints, but it's not as strong a guard as you would get with a strongly typed language like C#. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our demo and show a little bit about how we use Blazor in our Aspire dashboard. So I'm going to rerun our application, our TrailBlazor application. I'm going to open the dashboard this time. Awesome. So we have the site here, and then opening the dashboard, we have essentially 5 main pages. And we use a whole lot of built-in Blazor features, like Razor components, virtualization, stuff like that. The Aspire dashboard is a monitor for your resources, and that's this resources tab. You can see everything that's running. We have a couple containers. We have one container. We have 2 different web services. Like I mentioned, our API service and then our Blazor front ends. You have console logs too, and we can see all the console logs or limit it to a specific number. And then in our OTel integration, you have structured logs and traces and metrics that are also available. I'm just going to go ahead and clear all of the telemetry right now, go back to our TrailBlazor site, and let's go ahead and register. My name's Adam. I work for Microsoft. I'm a software engineer. And I just confirmed I'm now registered for TrailBlazor. And if I look at our structured logs, you can see that it's all actually very observable. We can look at what happened at each point in the process of the request and response. Now, there's not a whole lot of logging that's actually done in this application right now, but it's really what you make of it. The OTel integration inside the Aspire SDK, especially for .NET projects, that includes Blazor, is really lovely, and you get it basically for free. Everything comes to this dashboard, and you can look at even traces to see how fast things are and the order and progress of different stages, different requests in your application. There's metrics as well, and this is themable. We have dark theme, light theme, and a lot of other customization settings as well. And that takes advantage of some of Blazor functionality and also some that you get just for free with C#. That's the Aspire dashboard. And as I mentioned, You don't actually need to Aspirify your application to take advantage of that. You have people who, for example, want to see what's going on with their chat agents. And for any tool that is actually going to export telemetry in an OTel format, then you can put the Aspire dashboard as an exporter, and all of your OTel will show up in a nice, easy to use format. We have an npm package as well, along with other package managers like Homebrew and Winget, and it's easier than ever to actually just run the dashboard and get that goodness, even if you're not using any other part of Aspire. Okay, so going back to this presentation, as I mentioned, there's a lot of reusability in our navigation, in our settings. We have customized UI, even though we use the Fluent UI Blazor UI framework. There's a lot of customization that we have just because there's a lot of stuff. It doesn't necessarily look like it from the start, but especially if you play around with the Aspire dashboard, there's just a lot going on under the surface. And especially if you have a application that's fairly complex, it's a lot of data being handled. We use Razor components to avoid like heavy client resource usage. There's subscriptions in the background to between the dashboard and the hosting, the app host resource server. All that is handled on the server so that the client doesn't have to exert a lot of effort and resources to process all of these things. JavaScript interop. It's unfortunate. It has to happen at some point. We use that for persisting settings and executing functions that we can really only do, whether through security reasons or whatever, on the client instead of through Blazor. We do that as well for enabling some accessibility scenarios. And as I mentioned, the ASP.NET Core auth libraries, they do help us handle a variety of auth flows. The Aspire dashboard has to handle being run in a number of different environments, from ACA to local development, to being run as a container or an executable through the Aspire CLI. Has pretty complex requirements. Like you can have OIDC, there's token-based auth, you can run it unsecured if you really want to, and there's different auth policies for our OTLP, our API, and our front end. That's complex, and there is fortunately a happy path for all of these things with ASP.NET Core. We are able to use the out-of-the-box support with this well-trod path to create a secure platform. And we even have a couple ASP.NET developers, or I guess developers who formerly worked on ASP.NET Core, who have moved over to the Aspire team and who believe in the product, that feel at home using all of this stuff as well. So other Blazor things that we do use, like state management, is a lot easier than we have found that you will really find in the JavaScript ecosystem. You have dependency injection, there's cascading values, there's other forms as well, but we don't really use anything else. There is some integration that you can do with local storage and client-side data, but it's just easy to get, persist, maintain the data you need on a client-side application in Blazor. And that's part of the benefit for us of using it. And we make heavy use of virtualization for console logs or structured logs. You can have thousands and thousands of logs and metrics and what have you. That's taxing for a client to render, especially since we have a complex UI. We show a lot of information in the Aspire dashboard. That's would tax any client, especially older computers or browsers, and we make heavy use of that virtualization component. The Aspire dashboard, I think I mentioned this earlier in the presentation, can be run using the Aspire CLI. There's a bundle that is installed when you install the Aspire CLI. The dashboard gets bundled into it. Usually when you're running, it's the Aspire dashboard is run as a part of hosting. Now that's changing in the next couple of versions of Aspire. And so currently you have to match the version of the Aspire SDK that you're using with the Aspire dashboard. That's unfortunate because you don't necessarily want to keep the same versions. Or if you are an older shop using .NET 8 or 9 or whatever, then there can be compatibility concerns by mixing matching major .NET versions. So we are decoupling those, and the bundle that comes with the Aspire CLI, which is also going to be required for those of you who use Visual Studio, it's going to be required in the next major version of Aspire. You can run with any .NET version. We ship a sort of minimal .NET SDK along with Aspire, sort of a Trojan horse for .NET, without calling it .NET. And there's a simple command, Aspire dashboard run, that you can use to just run the dashboard. Now, why might you want to just do that? I mentioned earlier about chat agents, and it's quite true. Aspire is not purpose-built, but it has this really funny niche where it's absolutely wonderful for complex applications and viewing telemetry from something like a chat agent, where you might have a ton of rich tool calls and a lot of data that you need to sift through. We have a container as well. We do recommend that you do use the Aspire dashboard run command instead, but you can take advantage of the Aspire dashboard to get these OTel benefits without having to get into the whole Aspire ecosystem. This is actually new as of the last release. We are going to continue working on it, but the goal for the Aspire team over the next year is to continue to make local dev experience better. And that means better observability, better debugging, and better dashboard for all of you. I encourage you all to look at Aspire and take advantage of all that the dashboard and CLI provide.